So this week, I'm very excited indeed that we have a guest mix from the Caretaker, and I'm quite surprised we managed to get this actually, because I've always been kind of slightly in awe of the Caretaker, and I quite like the mystery behind it all and the mystery behind the music. We have him here. Hello, James. How are you?
Mysterious.
You sounding mysterious. We're on a very posh phone line for this interview. It kind of it's quite strange not having somebody really cackly talking to us from the States. So it's very nice. It sounds like you're in the room.
It feels like I'm in the room as well. Maybe I'm omnipresent.
Maybe you are. This is a major skill you've developed.
Indeed.
So whereabouts are you on this delightful line?
I am in deepest, darkest Berlin today, where it's very cold and very miserable.
Is that where you live? Do you live in Berlin? Not that's any of my business.
I do indeed, yes.
Okay. What have you been up to recently then, James?
Oh, I've been working very hard.
Have you? Okay.
Lots of releases out this year, some strange shows recently as well, where I was throwing myself down flights of stairs.
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah, well, I was playing this festival in Poland, and I was on before this experimental guy, Morten Subotnik, this old 80-year-old classic experimental guy. The venue's beautiful, huge, big cinema screen. I'm like, what the hell can I do here, to wake this audience up from the slumber? So I decided to throw myself down this full staircase to begin the show, which went very well.
Did they wake up? They must have done.
They definitely woke up. I think everybody was surprised because, of course, some of this music I make you would not associate.
No, I'm surprised, I have to say.
With that kind of action, but it really did wake up everybody, and then I had a fully attentive audience, which was fantastic.
Did anybody come to your aid?
No.
Not that kind of gig.
I realised it was part of this theatrical kind of like, what the hell is that?
Everyone just shuffled around slightly uncomfortably and watched you.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it was like this cinema, so I mean, everybody just sat down, and then this information, I think, was getting passed down the rows, like, oh, did you see what he just did? He just threw himself down all these stairs, and now he's on stage drinking whiskey, and it's not quite normal for these people, I don't think, to see that.
I was about to say, I've never managed to see you live, and I kind of want to do so even more now, but I will demand that you throw yourself off something.
I usually do.
Okay.
I usually do. So there may be a chance. I will try to make it back to Britain very soon. I think I'll play in London in January.
Oh, are you? Okay, wonderful. When you're not injuring yourself on the kind of more musical end of things, your album An Empty Bliss Beyond This World came out in this summer, wasn't it? It came out. And a wonderful thing it was too. We've been playing lots of it. I'm kind of addicted to it in the sense that it's one of those records that once you start kind of listening to it and you get caught up in that world, it's quite a hard one to walk away from.
Indeed, there's lots of layers, I think, to these tracks as well. I mean, they're quite complicated, like the composition for these.
Because despite the fact that they are quite dark and nasty, and there's a slightly kind of horror sound to it. It's bizarrely comforting, and you do kind of end up wanting to sort of stay there for a while.
It can kind of work on all those different levels, which is I guess quite difficult these days. It can seem very beautiful on the surface, certain tracks, but then in isolation, but then altogether it can be quite disconcerting.
What's next for Caretaker? Are you working on new stuff all the time? Are you quite kind of prolific? You clearly are.
I just like working, so I mean, I guess what gets released is the tip of the iceberg almost. But I mean, there's a new album out in December, which is the soundtrack to a film by Grant G.
Okay.
The film's called Patience After Sebald.
It must be. Is this the first soundtrack you've done?
It is the first soundtrack I've done. It's actually if you do get a chance to see the film, because I think it will be shown in places soon, then it's very beautiful because you don't really notice the soundtrack, which is what I was aiming for. So it's very unintrusive. Because
you have lots of different names that over the years, many names over the years you produced music with. The soundtrack to the film, is it a Caretaker soundtrack, or have you done it through could we expect something like the Caretaker?
No, it's definitely a Caretaker soundtrack.
Okay.
Definitely, and it's quite dark. It's quite a darker release, this one. It was actually recorded before the album, which was released earlier this year. So it's recorded before An Empty Bliss.
And obviously, I've read it, and it's quite clear from listening to it that you were kind of quite influenced. I know everyone kind of goes on about it, but like the ballroom in The Shining. So it must be kind of quite nice to be kind of influenced by a soundtrack to kind of full circle and starting to kind of do them yourself.
Of course. I mean, I think that scene is a very, very famous scene. It's very, very beautiful that this use of ballroom music, and definitely that was the initial inspiration behind all this work.
Another releases of yours, Intrigue and Stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Great title. What number are we on at the moment?
Number three. Number three.
Is number 3
came
out?
It's out. It's sold out. I don't know. They just go out and disappear at the moment.
Okay, so you're not really keeping track of these things.
Yeah, no, that one went out and disappeared. I think there's one more, and then maybe at some point I'll compile all these, but I'm not sure yet. But
Okay.
I guess that's completely different as well. I mean, it's more electronic, that stuff, which goes back to the stuff I started doing in maybe 1996. Now I'm getting old.
Well, it's quite hard to keep track of all your things. I kind of lose it, and then like I'm looking on kind of like various internet sites. So there's another Caretaker album, and you kind of they sort of kind of creep up on you, which I actually quite like. Out of interest, because the sound is such an old sound, but with a kind of like modern kind of view on it. I was just wondering, like, what kind of music were you brought up on? What you played as a kid?
Oh, as a kid from my parents, I don't know. I think they were really into Van Morrison and things like this. So nothing like this whatsoever.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing like this. More pop music, of course. I mean, I love pop music.
And finally, the guest mix that you've done for us, what can we expect from it?
I would expect the unexpected.
Okay.
I think that's always the best thing. I think that's always the best thing to expect these days. That's always the motivation. Expect the unexpected.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I will leave you to your very cold Berlin.
Darkness, believe me. Leave me to the darkness.
Okay, we're going to put the heating on and find something warm.
I'll try to.
Thank you very much for taking time out to speak to us.
Thank you very much.
Cheers then. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
build a stairway to the stars and climb that stairway to the stars with love beside me, just like a beautiful song. We'll hear the sound of violins out yonder where the blue begins. The moon will guide us as we go drifting along, and we sail away on a lazy daisy petal over the rim of the hill, and we sail away on a little dream and settle high on the crest of a tree. Let's build a stairway to the stars, a lovely stairway to the stars. It would be heaven to climb to heaven with you.
Wow, that was incredible. I really do wish that had gone on for a lot longer. This week's guest mix from the Caretaker. Thank you very much indeed to him for that.